Hi, welcome to Tales from the Sky Lounge. It's a podcast about business, consulting, and venture investing. We get out there in the world and we talk to people who are making it happen and we get their stories. So today's guest in the Sky Lounge, Rich Makover. Hi, Rich.
Hey,
How are
Todd,
you?
how are you doing?
Doing well. Rich, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you and what
Yeah,
do you do?
sure. Well, if you know accents, you'll know in 2 seconds. I'm a New Yorker, born and bred here in New York. Grew up on Long Island and married my high school sweetheart. So lived around the world and ended up living 10 minutes away from where we grew up. So go
Holy
figure.
wow.
Didn't expect that. But anyway, about me, I'm a son of a coach. Played sports my whole life. Played lacrosse at Penn State. Penn State's a big part of my life. My wife went there. My sister, my brother, they married Penn Staters. My kids, so we got a lot of Penn State in our blood. Anyway, did that for 4 years. Had a great time there. Still big part of my life. I'm sure it'll come out across and during the conversation. After that, went into finance, CPA, big KPMG, and didn't think that was for me forever, and got transitioned into beauty products. So it's an Avon products for the Avon lady. Around there for a long time. Learned a lot about business and leadership there. Had phenomenal bosses, phenomenal mentors in my life that has been incredibly important. Had a chance to see the world. Had a chance to live in Hong Kong. Lived there with my wife and I for a few years. Got into sales management, sales strategy, leadership, etc. And then since then I've always been in the sales and revenue area. Fortunate enough to work in some private equity portfolio companies as chief revenue officers, luxury products, so jewelry, watches, but then also in home. And then after a number of years of doing chief sales officer, chief revenue officer, very fortunate to get a call from a good friend of mine, Bob Toth, who's a partner at TechCXO, and said, you may want to consider, and never really heard of fractional. I didn't even know what it was. Did a little research on it. Took me a while to come to, this sounds right. And my only regret is I wish I would have started a year or two earlier. So I've been here now for a couple of years. Coming up with my 2-year anniversary in a month. And, been really fantastic. I'm a chief revenue officer for a number of companies and an executive coach. You got a number of clients with not only the practice, but also, my own network. And so I get to blend coaching as a executive coach as well as coaching as being a head of sales or a chief revenue officer. It's been really great. Really enjoyed it. Yeah.
That's awesome career. I don't know where to begin. So many cool things to talk about.
That just means I'm old though, Todd. It just means I've been through a lot,
It means you're fun. And you like Penn State.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about athletics. So a lot of people associate sales and athletics performance at a high level. So I've had a number of different executives that have a preference. They love to hire those D1 college athletes that have been through the grist mill, know how to compete, know how to win, especially in the sales arena. Why do you suppose that is? Or, what is it about the athletic environment that kind of preps you for sales?
Oh yeah. I have a very strong feeling about it as a former athlete myself, and I run a mentoring program at Penn State. So I'm dealing with these college athletes all the time right now. And I honestly think, Todd, it's less about know how to win. They know how to lose. They know how to be resilient. There's no athlete that has won 100% of the time, and so when you really think about sales, in my opinion, the great salespeople are the ones that are resilient, the ones that can deal with rejection. They keep on going. And to me, one of the benefits of being an athlete for me personally, but also my friends, my family, the kids that I mentor, I see it in them that, this ability to be resilient and not stay down too long is, I believe, a key attribute for great salespeople, because there just frankly is so much rejection in either hunting or in gathering and nurturing. There's a lot of rejection in it.
Yep. Fail forward, fail fast, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you get from being an athlete, and you said you went into, sounded like you took a diversion into CPA land.
Yeah.
That's kind
Yeah.
of
Well, I'll tell you,
interesting diversion. Are you a recovering CPA at this
it's
point?
a great story. It's a great story. So my dad was a teacher. My dad was a coach. He was a gym teacher,
Okay.
and he was scared to death I was going to be a gym teacher because we had no money, and he was working 7 jobs when I was a kid. And so he made me, excuse me, he really, really pushed me towards accounting because he had a cousin that was an accountant. No reason. I accepted my accounting degree and path because I couldn't take it any longer. Really. So I'm pretty good at math.
Okay.
And it was like, okay, I'll do this. I knew it was good jobs coming out. I was very fortunate. I got to want to work at the back in the day, the Big 8, now the Big 4. So KPMG. So it was a great baseline experience for me even as a sales leader because I know my numbers pretty well, and I can kind of the facts do speak when you're in sales, right? It's not just an emotional role. Yeah, certainly you're coaching, but you're looking at facts and what are indicators, et cetera. So it was actually I didn't know it at the time, but actually going into accounting and going into finance first, for my first almost, about 8 years of my career, being there and having the foundation and I can read a P&L, I can read a balance sheet, I can read a cash flow, and being able to do that has really helped me quite a bit in my career as a sales leader.
So, and it's kind of interesting, being business math literate or spreadsheet literate, is a really unique thing, for a lot of non-CFO type leaders, right? It's a very powerful thing. And I believe that's, there's kind of like, line salespeople. There's a lot of people that can sell things. I mean, it's an important skill for sure. But then, what is it that, there's kind of like sales leadership and then executives, kind of break that down for a second, so what do you think the critical skills are that separate just pretty good salesperson from a true sales leader? You touched on, a couple of, quantitative things or, emotional, non-emotional management. What is that first step look like?
Yeah, I think leadership is I've been very fortunate, super fortunate in my life to have been given chances to be a leader. 'Cause, it's not like you're born this way, right? You learn to be a leader. So I think, leadership skills, particularly when you're running a sales team with usually, they're remote to some degree. Usually it's not looking someone face to face. How do you help different people situationally coach a wide range of different salespeople? So I think leadership is really critical to be a CRO or a CSO as compared to being a salesperson. You're accountable to yourself when you're a salesperson. When you're a sales leader, you're accountable to many people, including your partners in the marketing team, in the finance team, in supply chain, service, IT, etc.
Wow.
So I think from a leadership point of view, that's one enormous part that I'm forever grateful, mostly to Avon, for that life experiences and frankly coaches I had early in my life. I think the other part though is what you're talking about a little bit, which is but can you think strategically and can you use facts to drive your strategy? So can you look at a set of facts? Those facts could be numerical or competition or whatever it might be. Can you make meaning of those, synthesize those, analyze those, and come up with a cogent action plan, which it certainly helps to be able to read your financial statements, to be able to read competitive data, and be able to synthesize that on behalf of your team as a leader. So I think those to me are frankly big differences in being a leader from being someone who's accountable to themselves as a salesperson.
And then, there's another step here. So from just, the first line, or director level, sales leadership, regional sales leadership. And at some point you get the tap on the shoulder and say, hey, we'd like for you to run the whole company, revenue, operations.
Yeah.
What is that? What's that jump look like? Or what do you focus on when you're helping those kinds of people?
I think the biggest jump at that point is the collaboration across functional areas. I think that's where you're not just leading your team, but you have to be a peer leader amongst your collaborative partners, marketing. I mean, at the end of the day, right? If I'm a chief revenue officer, I need leads. So what's the marketing effort to go get those leads? I need someone to manage and nurture all the way through. Is there a RevOps support structure in there? I need to close those leads, and then I need to have very happy customers. And I need the
Yeah,
customer success, right? So
sure.
I think as you become in more of the traditional C-suite roles, and that's when it becomes incredibly important to have collaborative and teamwork skills, because you're not living in, if you're living and dying on your own isolated sales, you're in trouble, right? You've
Yeah.
got to really work and play nicely, but in a leadership position. And that's a huge difference, from becoming a head of sales or a regional director to becoming a chief revenue officer.
So you mentioned, marketing and leads and that kind of thing. Every good salesperson, needs a source of leads, right? And then the bigger you go, the more help you need, so how do you, if you're the CRO and you're setting it up, or you're repairing something that already exists, what does that structure look like, in a modern organization?
Yeah.
What kind of, maybe walk us through what it looks like today, and then maybe highlight a couple of the changes
Yeah.
that have been, occurring.
Well, listen, I think one of the most interesting parts about being a partner at TechCXO is I have so many different clients, right? And different industries. So it's really different. I've got, and I have a digital marketing agency, an AI tool platform, and then I've got a safety reflector company.
Sure.
And their need for leads, they all need leads, but they're very different in what they need. So, I think one of the keys is I always do a strategy session anytime I start with a client. I always do a strategy about, where's our North Star, and then based on that North Star, I build out how are we going to win big, and then break it into channels. I believe in channels as a key element of the lead generation strategy. So, do you have a channel strategy? Is it do you have a direct to consumer, an omni? Are you have a brick and mortar? Are you a pure B2B and a service model? Depending on that is really going to drive your lead generation strategy. Clearly the world has gone far more to digital than when I first started doing it. I mean, look at the hair.
Yeah.
Okay? So,
Yeah.
when I started doing, there was a lot more, there wasn't nearly the level of digital and the sophistication around lead generation now. Some of the sophistication around some of the outstanding SEO capabilities that some companies have, it's just tremendous compared to back in the day where, it was really much more paid for. I think some companies gotten really good at blending the different channels across each other so they synergize to generate some kind of repeatable lead generation strategy.
Okay. And then, so back in the day, there was a lot of, wine and dine, and you take people out and then you schmooze them and go play golf and that kind of sales.
Yeah.
Does that still persist today?
Yes.
Is there an element of that that has to get brought forward? How do you think about that? Or is
Yeah, it's such a great question, Todd, because let me what I've observed over the last year for myself, because I am in the business of business development also, and for myself as well as for my clients, is coming out of COVID, when no one saw anybody, there is a great desire for people to see people. And so I'm actually seeing a resurgence in what I used to call BLDs. Ever heard of BLDs? Breakfast, lunch, and dinners.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So, I tell my teams, different clients, how many BLDs you doing?
Okay.
Well, let's come up with metrics. So how many are you going to do? Because I am seeing definitely, as people are so now eager to break bread again after those years of not, definitely I'm seeing more of it. And I still think it's important. Can it be done as the only thing? No. And that's kind of where things have shifted, I believe. There is now much more of a sales machine or lead machinery that takes place today than there was, 10 years ago, where it was, truly golf course for enterprise sales and, BLDs for others. So, but I definitely see a place for it.
So, we're all in tech, so tech is unlocked, regionality, right? So I can be, a couple of folks in a garage, with a piece of software and be a worldwide SaaS company, and then, figure out how to market out there in the world. And then, the whole podcast here is about, the Sky Lounge.
Right.
Just means you can't, get in your car and go travel down to the golf course. Now you got to get out in the world, and then, so maybe the first call is not me knocking on your door with shoe leather, and, hey, how you doing? My name's Todd. I'm with Avon or whatever.
Yeah.
But you still have to go out there and talk to people, and it's a differentiator. And we hear that all the time. So is the world, the world's shrinking, and then, your responsibilities getting bigger? Is regionality still a thing? Does it make sense to have territories?
I think it does in certain industries. What I'm seeing much more of is stratification of customer client groups as compared to just regional. Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing much more of a channel structure in a company, and maybe it's going to be department stores, mass, online, Amazon, different channels, as opposed to Northeast, Southeast. In the old days, right? It was everyone had the same thing: Northeast, Southeast, Central, West. Maybe you had a Northwest, maybe you had a South. But that part, I think, is changing for many, because you're able to look at it much more as a specialty. Mm-hmm. Let me go after all department stores, a group, which is very different than a buying club, right? Like a Costco club, which is very different than the independent mom and pop shops that may be called upon by distributors. So I'm seeing more movement towards channel than region. There are still some that are going to be a regional basis. Those that are in doctor groups or medical, you're going to see a lot more of a regional structure. But when you're talking about a SaaS-based business, let's say, it really is, who are you selling to and how do you group them together so you have a specialty and a customized or crafted message that's right for department stores, or that's right for the CPG in the food services, as opposed to a different category.
And then we're talking about channels. When you say channel, it's a marketing channel, right? The inbound. But there is channel sales too, right? Yeah. So how do you think about developing channel sales, or when's the right time for a growing company to start thinking about that?
I think that we at TechCXO, I'm very fortunate. I run a bunch of gamut of very early stage up through a couple $100 million businesses. Mm-hmm. And I could see the massive difference. In a small business, there is no channel strategy at that point. It is it's not as structured. I think what happens is when you get that product market fit figured out, and you start, usually that's a trigger towards accelerated growth. And I know you're quite experienced, I'm sure, in that. When that happens is when now you've got to start thinking about channels, because then you can't be the same message, because you're a different message. You got a product market fit, but it's a different nuanced message for different channels. And that's where I see it. That's where I see the shift happening.
And that's a different personality, right? That's a different type of selling, right? A channel manager, or is that, how do you think about that hire? Well, like, who do you look for?
I'm going to go back to the first
Depends on the company, right?
No, I'm going to go back to the first thing we talked about.
Yeah.
I look for athletes.
Okay.
Now they may not have been a D1 athlete. Who cares? I look for someone who's got the mentality and has been through some battles and has been banged around. Mm-hmm. Because I do think that each of these can be taught. I think that there is less and less is it about your Rolodex. In my experience, it's becoming less and less your Rolodex and more your capability to have a playbook, your capability to learn, and your capability to have great resilience. So I would take an athlete or, somebody who's been banged around. I'll take a musician too.
Okay.
Someone's been banged around.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Musicians, they got to get up on stage. The ones that have been on stage, the ones that have had a team around them, people relying on them. Anyone who's been in that moment of stress and has failed, I'll take those folks, and I'd prefer to train them than thinking I'm going to hire someone from an industry just because they have a quote unquote Rolodex, which I believe I mean, what's the average chief revenue officer length of in their role right now? I think the Korn Ferry result came back at 17 months.
I was gonna say 18 months.
Yeah,
Like
so,
seems to be it,
yeah.
right?
So what's the point of having a Rolodex? You don't know what people are going to be. So I'd
Right.
rather have the athlete or the salesperson that's got the capabilities than just the Rolodex.
When it used to be, your Rolodex was really precious, right? You had information that nobody else had. You had their phone number. People didn't move around. Now it's all immediately discoverable,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Zoom Info, Apollo, many other tools,
Right.
LinkedIn, obviously. So I'm not suggesting that it's not important, but if I have a preference, I take the athlete over the Rolodex to be an impactful leader.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's right. I think that's absolutely right. And then our world is becoming, if nothing else, more and more dynamic as we go. Right.
Yeah.
So you need people who are going to just, hey, I don't care. You can throw tomatoes at me. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, that's right.
And
that's right.
figure it out.
That's right.
So, we talked about like post-COVID, people kind of, things change, right? So I live in a nice neighborhood. We have a little t-ball field in a little tiny tot soccer field,
Yeah.
and it used to be, there's like rec league, church league, every Saturday, be a bazillion 5-year-olds swarm in the place.
Yep.
You don't see that anymore. And then I noticed like, in the summer, the swimming pools are empty. Do you feel like our pipeline for athletes is drying up, or is there always going to be that segment of the population that's going to find some kind of competitive outlet?
I think so, Todd. I mean, I coached many years, Little League soccer, Little League basketball, Little League lacrosse. I refused to do baseball, even though I love baseball, just because I couldn't take how long the games were. I was like,
Yeah.
What I see from a funnel of athletes, using that as the example, is just that the kids don't play as many sports anymore. Like they're picking their thing, and that's their thing.
Very deep.
But I still, and they specialize too, in my opinion, way too early. But I still see we're using the athlete as the example, but it really is the person that's dealt with rejection more than it's they can, are they strong and fast, right? I'm looking for someone who has, dealt with and been resilient through years of diligent work, of getting up after failing, of competing, and still be able to move on, not crawling into a hunch, and hitting the road. So I think that, to me, the youth or the pipeline, maybe it'll be a little bit different in terms of, hey, these kids playing 3 sports and playing, 12 months out of the year, and maybe not, but, I still think there's a lot of things that are competitive out there, and I'm looking for people that have had competition. I've got a son who is a nice athlete, but a great musician. And I gotta tell you something, my heart was in my throat when I would go to watch him, the lead singer of a band, and I'm like, as scared as the parent is, as I was when I watched one of my daughters play lacrosse,
facing adversity, getting up there, and
getting
performing
up there
anyway.
and,
right?
What if he hits the wrong note? And he did, which he did. He's
We all
human,
do,
of
right?
course. And then how is he going to be? And how is he going to recover? And all those things. So there are other ways to find the quote unquote athlete who's dealt with adversity.
Yeah. So I know. So I have sons that are in that college age, and then one of them is probably going to be in sales, but I don't know, And it's so, what would you tell him? Probably got a pretty good aptitude for sales, just personality. He's the one kid that is probably going to be good at it. You kind of tell. What jobs or what experiences should he be looking for?
Yeah.
Is that SDR job? Is it something else? Should you go like hustle cell phones?
Great.
In a mall kiosk or something?
It's a great question. Look, my feeling is he should look, if it's purely about learning and not about the company. Like I always tell kids, listen, your skills you get to keep. Your job you may not, but your skills are yours. So if it's all about skills, tell them to look for a high volume sales job, meaning not enterprise sales, not like a big whale but but high volume, he's got to get practice.
Mm-hmm.
Got to get the repetition. So how many leads are you getting a day? Go to a place where you're going to talk to a lot of prospects,
Okay.
a lot of prospects, because it's a skill. No one is born a salesperson. You may be born with, not as shy, or you may be, different attributes that are strengths. But to be a good salesperson, I've met some introverts who are great salespeople.
Oh, no kidding.
Because they've learned how to be active listeners. They've learned how to put a playbook together. They've learned how to get a strategy together so they're not wasting time. So I always say, get volume of repetition more than get into a place where you learn how to win on a golf course.
So it's the overcoming objections and just
Yes.
listening and closing motion
and failing.
And
failing.
And that's okay.
I mean, that's the biggest challenge for a salesperson it is hard. It is
so
hard.
The coolest thing, and I did a bunch of real estate for a while, so I got really good at closing. But some guy told me one time, he said SW is the secret. And I was like, what is that? And he goes, well, some will, some won't.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
Somebody's waiting.
Yeah, there you go.
I was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
Right.
Like,
Perfect.
Next. Right.
It takes, though, I don't mean a unique person, but it takes a skill to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a skill to be able to truly be able to do that. And I think that, a new salesperson, a new person into the world, into a career, the more repetition you get in everything, the better, as opposed to, being in a sales position where it's a great company, but you're the second or third person. You're not on the line for this. It's just not the same degree of repetition than if you're on the line having to learn. So yeah, SDR, BDRs, those are great, great for learning.
And then, so there's a lot of, in SaaS, everybody's got a formula. There's a lot of engineers that run a lot of companies. So, you see these formulas where, okay, if you make this many reach out phone, answer leads or, cold calls, whatever, reach outs, and then you produce this amount, we're going to put you on the next level. It's kind of like this ladder concept. How do you feel about that? Is it really that structured?
No, I don't
engineers like for things to be structured. Sales guys don't.
I don't believe so. And the reason I don't believe so is, first of all, people are, not all people are lazy. Some people are lazy. And you're going to take a formula that works because someone said that's an industry standard, but everyone's, is not exactly the same. So what's your conversion rate from a meeting to a closed sale? Well, industry standards may always 12%, but maybe not for the type of market fit that your product is. Maybe it's 22%, maybe it's 8%. I don't know. So it's a little, in my view, it's a little bit lazy to just say, here's the industry standard, particularly with relatively new companies. I would much rather be a little less formulaic. I get it. KPIs. I'm a numbers guy. I like my dailies. I like my weeklies. I like my monthlies.
Okay.
So I do all that stuff, but I don't really believe in such a cookie cutter industry standard approach. And in fact, some of the recent research coming out of Gartner is kind of guiding us away from that, because of the fact that there isn't enough commonality in the industries to be just transposing one to another.
Okay.
So and also where you're at in the horizon of your company can be quite different.
So how do you know, like, which ones to promote and pour gas on, and which ones kind of have to lean on to?
In terms of people?
Yeah.
In terms of people?
Yeah. What does young sales talent look like?
Yeah.
How does that manifest?
So to me, I'm a huge fan of situational coaching. I'm not a big cookie cutter coach view. So, obviously, assuming you got a reasonable span of control, which you can actually coach individuals, to me, it's all about what degree of direction do they need compared to what degree of support do they need. It's very different, right?
Okay.
Direction is for somebody who doesn't know how to do the job. I mean, if you tell someone who's brand new, if your son worked for me tomorrow and he didn't know anything about anything, and I told him, attaboy, you got a great attitude, keep it going, great support, how is it going to help him do the job? No way. Right? He needs direction. He needs to be told, hey, by the way, today, here's what I want you to do. And then tomorrow. So direction is needed sort of situationally for someone who doesn't have the skill. They may have the will, but no skill, right? They need direction. Flip side is someone who's got great, skill and will. What you can't give them direction. They know more than you do as a leader. So they need support. What tools can they give you? What do you need to be more effective? So I believe to your question about how do you tell, it's really incumbent upon the leader to know your team and to situationally coach them, depending on where are they in the 2x2 matrix of skill and will. You'll know how much direction compared to how much support to provide to them. Look, if they got low skill and low will, well, they're not going to be on the team. But if they're somewhere in those other three boxes, there's an answer for them.
Okay.
In some kind of ratio of what you're going to provide for them.
There's a book, an old book called Sales Dogs. It's like a Robert Kiyosaki, one of his buddies wrote.
Rich Father, Poor Father, right?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And then the whole idea was there's 5 different, the book is about there's 5 different kind of personalities in sales. It's like, I can't remember. It's like a poodle, those are realtors, drive the Range Rover. And then, it's like a pit bull, they just grab hold and just don't let go.
Yeah.
Labrador, anything you need, buddy, that's all good. There's a Chihuahua that's good for like technical sales. Is kind of let's talk. How is that? How much credence does that seem like that's right? Or and then you talk about situational coaching. Is that kind of the same idea where you have to kind of recognize everybody's styles, or you feel I think
that's a really cool way to sell books.
Okay.
I
matter,
love it. I mean, I'm even liking it. I'm a dog lover, so I'm loving it. I have Newfoundland, so I'm like, I wonder what the Newf is,
Okay.
So I like the idea from but I think from a practical point of view of what am I trying to put together? So think about it as a sales leader or revenue leader. I want diversity on my team because I don't want everyone to be a pit bull.
Okay, right.
I don't want everyone to be a poodle.
Right.
So I want diversity on my team. Because I believe in that. I believe that your team will be stronger because someone's going to have the answer in the room, for that specific, the need or the skill set to help. So diversity. So, that means that if it's selling technical, I don't just need was it a Chihuahua? I want
Chihuahua.
I want a pit bull also in that room,
Right.
So I don't believe in it's so tied to what you're selling.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that I was mentioning earlier is, I'll never forget this. When I was at Avon, and I got a really great first job in sales. I was the head of sales for New York City, which was like, wow, couldn't believe I got it. It was like really fortunate on my end. And there was a manager. So there were managers that reported to me. That's the way the structure was. There was a manager that worked for me, and she was the number 1 district sales manager in the country. Out of 1,600 sales managers, she's the number 1.
Wow.
Known as the number 1. She made Circle of Excellence out of 25 years on the job, 24 out of 25.
Wow.
And she was ill the year she didn't win it. Right. So
okay.
She always wins. Always. So you would think, oh my God, you meet her. She's going to be the most gregarious, recruiting new Avon women to the business. Not at all.
Oh.
Not at all. A reserved, quiet, unassuming planner, tactician, organized, kind. So I was blown away. I thought, it must be this larger than life, aspirational manager for the area. Nothing like that.
Wow.
What she and so I learned very quickly, don't pre-assume pit bull, Chihuahua, poodle, lab, I
don't know.
But I love his books. So
and I think Basset Hound was the other one, right? You kind of sniff a deal a mile away. You just kind of have to let them go for a while, and they'll bring in the big game.
Yeah.
Let's flip it around. Okay, so we talked about the early career. What does sales look like? Let's talk about the pinnacle, right? So you're now an executive coach, and you get to talk to lots of really interesting people. You almost need more coaching later in your career because the stakes are bigger, right? So what types of issues do you typically run into, when you sit down for that first time and say, hey man, what do you want to work on today?
Yeah, thanks for asking the question, so I get to talk about this. Because I love executive
Yeah,
coaching.
yeah.
I love it. I find there's a lot of overlap. And before I went to get full certification, I thought I knew this because I've been leading and coaching for so long that I would know. Well, it's been an eye opening for me from a skill set for myself
Okay.
to learn how to ask empowering questions using different techniques. Has been awesome. I'm very, very, very glad that I invested time, effort, energy into it.
And you said certification. Was there
Yeah,
like what
yeah,
did you get like a formal body
yeah,
certification
yeah.
somewhere?
There's a group that I use called IPEC with many of the TechCXO partners are
Okay.
certified through IPEC,
Yeah.
which then translates into the International Coaching Federation, ICF.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
And so there's a framework and then
yeah,
you guys sit
yeah.
down. Okay.
Exactly.
And maybe
I mean, we have a lot of latitude within it, but it gives you a framework that helps you um, help the client.
Mhm.
Helps you really be a little more streamlined in your approach to the client. My clients tend to be usually in two buckets. I'm getting a junior C-suite,
Okay.
so I'm getting someone who's their first time playing in the in the big leagues,
Mhm.
and they're nervous.
Yeah.
They're not
Do they reach
sure.
out to you or is like
It
CEO or the
depends.
HR
Usually no.
person?
Usually no.
Okay.
Usually it's
Here's
somebody
your
above
coach.
them that says, "Hey, we want to
Yeah.
provide this person
Yeah.
with coaching," which,
Okay.
by the way, happened to me as a younger executive.
It's
When
super
I was at
scary the first time
when
it
I was at
happens, isn't it?
Luxottica, I was the head of sales at Luxottica, a huge company, and I was new to the culture,
Mhm.
and they gave me a coach right away. And it
Wow.
was fantastic.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I loved it. It was great. So I get called in usually for a junior executive,
Mhm.
and it's more to your question earlier about how do you go from being a really good regional
Mhm.
to now being the head of.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is, working with them on where their confidence is, because all of a sudden they think I'm not good enough. I
Mhm.
shouldn't be in this room.
Mhm.
I shouldn't really be here. I have, I got a complex, will they find me out? And so a lot of it is working with them on how do they, um, how do they see it and how do they overcome that kind of fear of am I going to get found out? Right. That's a common theme. The other group I talk to are people in transition.
Okay.
So those are people that have been like, in a banker. I had a client who's a banker and he was a banker for 30 years. And he didn't want to be a banker anymore.
Okay.
And in his mind, he thought the only thing I know how to do is be a banker.
Mhm.
And he just could not move his mind to another place. He wanted to do something different, but he couldn't get there. And so again, it was all about this is a highly talented, highly successful person.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to be a banker anymore. And how can I do something different if I've only done this one thing? And so we end up working on quite a bit about what's holding you back. And, let's talk, it sounds like therapy, but I'm certainly not a therapist. But
Yeah. In a way you are, right?
well, coaching is, it's definitely not because I'm not trained like that, but we definitely help by asking questions. The biggest difference I would say, Todd, between coaching and advising is, and I give TechCXO Matt always credit for this one. He said the difference is that when you're advising, the answer is not already in the room. I mean, nobody there knows how to do this. You're like the seasoned executive is going to show them how to do this. Coaching is when the answer's in the room. You just have to help them unlock it.
Mhm.
And there is quite a big difference
That's
in the two.
a subtle thing, but it's
Yeah.
true, right?
Yeah, quite a big difference.
Huh. I never thought about it that way. There's definitely rooms where they've not done it before, and there's no personality where they just need you for a little
Yeah.
bit,
Yeah.
to point them the right way and say, "Here's
Yeah.
what's normal and customary. You just go do this," and then
Exactly. I mean, my comfortability is tell them how to do it.
Mhm.
I mean, I've been a leader for a long time, so I want to be able to, tell them how to do it. But when you're coaching, that really is not productive.
So what's kind of the end game for a coaching? I always tell people, I might not build hours, forever, but I will always be your friend. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Is that
Right.
kind of the end goal? And then, you got any success stories along that vector
Yeah,
of,
I think that the end goal, I mean, I'm still, I'm not really thinking too much about the end, but the migration plan is, yeah, I love coaching.
Mhm.
I run a mentoring program at Penn State lacrosse. That got me into thinking, oh, what can I do for others? That then led to, let me try to, I mean, I do that for free. Let me try coaching. I found I loved it. Well, then let me get certified. Let me do all these things. So the plan for me is to over time do more and more coaching. Um, but a lot of what I'm really doing now, Todd, is I'm taking the skills I learned as a coach, some of the very tactical skills about, empowering questions, frameworks, et cetera. I'm actually bringing that into my work as a fractional CRO.
okay.
So I really am bringing the coaching skill sets into the fractional CRO experience, really working with founders, really working with folks that are just, now maybe report to me, but they're still junior, helping them using some of the frameworks and the coaching.
So player coach, and then,
Yeah.
So, I think, I can't remember which football coach it was. I think it was one of the Alabama guys, but they said the measure of a leader is really how many other leaders you can create. And then if I can be a leader who creates leaders, who creates champions.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate, right?
Oh,
and that's super rare.
Isn't that
right?
the best feeling in the world? So a quick story. So buddy of mine, teammate of mine, at Penn State, when we decided to become mentors for the business school at Penn State. So the business school is called SMEAL, and we became mentors for the SMEAL school. They're a really rigorous process of mentoring. I had to do all these things and pass different, checkpoints. Am I ready for it? Then I got to assign my student. We had a very formal process and structure. My wife said to me one day, hey, you spent a lot of time in this, why don't you take what you learned and do it for the kids you really have an affinity for, their life, their experiences. Why don't you do it for the lacrosse team?
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, what a great idea. So I brought it to my friend. He said, this would be amazing. Let's talk to the coach. This coach is not the coach that I played for. This is, I'm old. I played for a guy back before that. He said, look, if you guys are willing to do it, I'm in. So we built this whole mentoring program for Penn State lacrosse called Teammates for Life. And I bring it up because of your comment about, this kind of repetitive process of what are you creating out there. And our rule is, we basically took the whole SMEAL business school and they said, fine, no problem. When we brought it to the lacrosse program, it's been gone 10 years now. And our rule is that, look, we as mentors, we have a mentor for every kid. Every kid on the team's got a mentor assigned to them. They got to go through training, all that stuff. We help them get jobs. We help them through life as a student athlete. It's not easy. And the rule is, but you got to give back when you're done.
There you go.
Right.
Yep.
And I got the goosebumps telling you this. And so our kickoff meetings next Tuesday night for this new season.
Okay.
And we've got kids now who are mentors, who I mentored when I first started the program 10 years ago.
That's so cool. And they
they're
come
young
back.
dads.
Okay.
They're young dads, and they're back here now mentoring these kids. It's awesome.
And the more you plow in, the more you get, right?
It feels great. It feels really rewarding.
So, I know with your coaching business, your formal executive coaching, one of the things you target is executives, athletes that are looking to transition into something else.
Yeah.
So maybe kind of give us a couple examples of what that looks like. Is that like pro athletes or like D1, college athletes?
No, thanks for the question. No, it's not. I'm not looking per se for pro athletes. I'm looking for people that have had the experience of being an athlete. And really the reason for that is simply because I find that my coaching and my style relates well with people. I mean, I'm talking about high school players.
Okay.
I'm talking about middle school players. If you've got an athletic mindset of, hey, I have been in those practices in the mud flats. I've done the up and backs. I've woken up at 6 o'clock for the runs. Yeah, I really care what level. Who cares?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
all I care about is that I like to work with people and tap into those actual life experiences to remind them of other times in life when they've been resilient, of other times in life where they've overcome, other times in life where this kind of gremlin or fear they have inside of them, they have dealt with.
Okay.
And because that's a big part of coaching is to remind people about their strength. And so I find that with athletes, one of the things I like to do is to bring them back to a time when they did overcome a really hard moment,
Okay.
a really tough loss. Getting beaten out for the starting role in 8th grade. Who
So,
cares?
and we talk about transitions, right? So, like that banker you're talking about, I'm not sure where that banker ended up, but was it, do you talk to people who are reinventing themselves, career 2.0, 3.0, 4.0?
Yeah.
Because I think it's likely that we're all going to have at least a couple, 3 very different careers at some point in our lives, right? So what are the critical things to get right? Or, what is a banker who wants to be something else, how does that go?
It's a great question. By the way, he ended up getting out of banking totally.
Yeah.
And into a franchise.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. He was a sports guy. He got like a little, a soccer academy franchise.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the key, in my view, from a baseline, is to really get comfortable with what we call your key values are. So we really spend some time in the early days about what are your non-negotiables in life? What are your key values? What makes you happy? What's the thing that you will not move from? It is immovable. And those could be things like, very soft, fuzzy areas, or they could be hard. It could be, look, respect it's immovable to me. That is a core value. I'm talking about a client, a core value of respect. It's immovable. I show respect. In order for me to do business with you, you must show respect. If you don't, it's immovable. I cannot. So these are, and there's no right answer, but we have to identify what is the key values that's at your bedrock before they can decide how to pivot, because you've got to align those to your key values, whatever you're going to do, or you'll be miserable. And that's the whole point, right? It's like it's like the pebble in your sandal, if that pebble's in the sandal, it doesn't matter. I don't care. It's going to be very uncomfortable. You got to get it out, or you have to choose the direction that aligns with that. So most of the transition work is upfront work.
Okay.
Truth is that most people are deathly afraid to change because most of us in more of our generation of, my generation above, they didn't have 10 jobs like our kids are going to have by the time they get to be
30,
50, 30, right?
Yeah. All right.
Right. A lot of these guys, this one banker was the same bank for 25, 30 years.
Sure. Very common.
Doesn't even believe he can do something different.
Yeah.
So
why would you? Right. You got a safe, secure job, and you work 20 years and retire.
Yeah.
Right.
And so to get them to move and have the mindset of being open to move without saying it, but never doing it, I really do most of the work in the front end on key values. What's important to you? Why is it important to you? A lot of discussion about that.
And then, so somebody like that, do they generally have an idea of like, hey, I've got this thing rattling around my head. I always want to be a little guy soccer coach, or
not always,
or is it more like, I'm so sick of banking. I can't go in next week, unless I have something else going on.
Right. So my experience has been the latter.
Okay.
It's not so much, hey, I know what I want to do. It's, I know I don't want to do this. I'm not happy. And really what he's saying is, it's not aligning to my key values.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's figure out your key values. And then
it's no longer aligning to my key values. And, maybe that, not always, but sometimes it is, let's say the key value was respect.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't feel respected anymore. In these small ways over 2 or 3 years. I can't live like this.
Do you use personality assessments to help
I
in
do.
that kind of thing? Okay. And
We
what are
do.
your favorite
Yeah,
ones
we
that
do.
you like to look at?
Yeah, I've done them all, but my favorite one is one that is called an ELI.
Okay.
It's called an Energy Leadership Index
Okay.
assessment,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it basically typical where you take a bunch of questions and it's spitting out, but it basically is how do you respond without stress?
Okay.
How do you respond with stress?
Okay.
And there's no perfect answer here, but it's a great awareness improvement tool.
Mhm.
So that when you're feeling stress, it's like, oh, I have an awareness of what am I doing right now?
Mhm.
I am acting with, let's say, fight,
Okay.
or let's say I'm acting with victim. I'm gonna shrink.
Okay.
And it is a great awareness tool to say, oh, okay, hold on, I know what's happening here.
Mhm.
So that's the one that's my go-to.
And that's kind of like the answers in the room. You just got to
Yeah,
show them like, hey man,
yeah,
like you feel bad because I think this is going on. Do you feel like that's
yeah,
right?
that's
Yeah,
right.
it is. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
Okay.
the other
How
part
do
I
we,
like about assessments in general, but this one in particular, is it really helps from the coaching point of view to where do you want to focus the coaching.
Mhm.
No one wants to have a coach for 2 years. I mean, that's a long time. Let's get some quick wins.
Mhm.
Let's really get to the issue, and the assessment a lot of times directs you to where to attack.
Okay.
Where should the coaching be focused on, to really get the best result in a relatively short amount of time. And that quick win then adds to confidence, that adds to more quick wins, and all of a sudden you have, instead of being in inertia, I can't move, to the example of the banker, can't move,
Mhm.
to, oh, let me put one step in front of the other because we built some of these quick wins along the way.
Yeah, makes sense. So, what's the most dramatic transformation you've seen in one of these clients? Has there been like a polar opposite 180, like you were totally not in the right place and we,
Um,
got you into this next
I
role in
think the
life?
guy, the gentleman I'm talking about it was an amazing, amazing experience for me
Okay.
personally, because this is somebody who grew up in a country where, you were defined what you were going to be at a very young age,
Okay. Right.
like 15 years old,
Okay. Yeah.
apprentice,
Okay.
like, and then did that for whatever, 35 years almost. And then maybe 40 years. Yeah, 40 years. And then said, this is not working for me.
Okay.
And highly talented, smart, successful, great dad, great friend, all these things. You're like, this guy's got everything.
Mhm.
Miserable. And so it's really awesome to see how the coaching unlocked what is this super confident jock of a guy,
Nice.
unlocked his ability to be able to say, I'm scared to do that, and why, and ultimately got some quick wins under his belt until he ultimately was able to move forward. Incredibly rewarding for me personally. Incredibly rewarding.
Very cool. Well, and then I know you coach a lot of people in a lot of places. Yeah. So, are you just in the United States, or do you help people all over the world? Or
I don't. Actually, I never thought about this. That's because with as we talked about earlier, the lack of travel.
Mhm.
Yes, I coach someone in the Philippines.
No
But
kidding.
yeah, I do. And I didn't think about it until you just asked the question. Yeah, I have one of my clients that I'm a chief revenue officer for,
Mhm.
husband and wife, and I actually executive coach the wife
Mhm.
as a separate from me being that, we have rules, in this session, we're not talking about pipeline. We're not talking about sales. This
Okay.
session is executive coaching. She's new to being in the executive suite with her husband.
Mhm.
And how am I going to do it? How am I going to lead
Okay.
effectively? And so that's a Zoom. Yep, that's a Zoom 8 a.m. Tuesday mornings.
Wow. Okay. So I know, that's a travel story. So you want to
Yeah.
share the Philippines death march travel story?
So yeah. So I've got, I went to the Philippines. I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but I lived in Hong Kong for 3 years. I spent a lot of time in Asia, early part of my career. And I was so happy to get the client in the Philippines. It was just really, really fortunate. And they asked myself and the chief marketing officer to come to do a strategy session with them in Cebu.
Okay.
Which is not Manila. I'm not sure if you know the Philippines, but
yeah.
And that's not Manila. And so I said, sure. And so we flew there. It took me 30 hours to go from New York to Cebu, New York to Seoul,
Okay.
Seoul to Manila, Manila to Cebu.
Okay.
Many sky lounges not open, my friend.
Oh,
so
no.
your moniker here not working for that one.
Oh, no. Okay.
Total nightmare. Me sitting outside, in Manila, hot as can be, waiting for the lounge to open up because I got there, I don't know, 3:00 in the morning.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah. No, it didn't open. So I sat in the hallway there while that was trying to open up.
Oh, man.
And then finally got to Cebu, and then was there I think we were there for 3 days and turned around and came back and did the same thing. So, yeah. And I got the platinum card. I'm ready for these lounge. I'm ready for the nice lounge.
Yeah.
Did not work so well. Did not work so well in Manila, Cebu, Manila, nor in Seoul.
No. Oh my God.
No, not so good.
And New York's got a couple sky lounges. What's your favorite New York airport?
I'm a Delta guy, so honestly, LaGuardia is really nice, and they really fixed it up nicely. So LaGuardia is nice, and I try to go LaGuardia as much as possible.
Okay.
They really fixed it up nicely after years of construction, and the lounge is right off of the my door opened up. That was a dog that walked through.
Okay. Yeah.
They built the lounge right through security, so you come right into there, lounge out, get my work done. Oh, good.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great having you today. So if people want to follow up with you after this, what's a great way for them to get in touch with you after this?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Todd. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so clearly, just hit me on LinkedIn, Rich Makover, Makover. You see it on the screen.
Yeah.
I've got a book appointment tab in there, so you can book directly there. If you want to reach me on email, rich.makover@techcxo.com, and I'm a proud revenue growth partner at TechCXO, so that's another good way to reach me. And I look forward to talking to anybody who wants to talk about executive coaching or fractional chief revenue officer work, or to learn more about TechCXO and the great partners that we've got there. And I'm always happy to route people to the right person.
Well, it's been great having you, Rich, and bye for now.
All right, thanks, Todd.
Thanks for joining us in the Sky Lounge. Please like and subscribe to hear more from Tales from the Sky Lounge here and anywhere else you get your podcasts.